He came home late, like always, but that night something was different, and one quiet sentence from the housekeeper changed everything. The key turned in the lock with a soft click, followed by the low groan of the front door easing open. Michael stepped inside, pulling his suitcase over the threshold. The entryway was shrouded in darkness, no welcoming lights, no familiar footsteps, just silence and a faint scent of lavender cleaner lingering in the air. He glanced at his watch. 12:47 a.m. Typical. The house stood still, like it had paused in his absence. He dropped his keys on the hallway table with a clink, expecting the familiar echo. But something was off. Before the sound could fully ring out, a sharp whisper cut through the air. "Don't!" Michael turned sharply. At the far end of the hallway, emerging from the shadowed archway near the kitchen, stood Olivia, her hands lifted in a hushed, urgent gesture. He blinked, thrown off. "Olivia, I didn't realize you were still—" She rushed toward him on soft-soled slippers. "Please, Mr. Langford, keep your voice down." Michael frowned. "I wasn't shouting. You were about to be loud. Please." Her voice was low, firm, not timid, not hesitant. This was not the Olivia he remembered leaving behind a week ago. He took a closer look at her, eyes tired, hair slightly disheveled, the collar of her blouse wrinkled like she hadn't changed since morning. "What's going on?" he asked, lowering his voice instinctively. She glanced up the staircase, eyes scanning the upper floor, before stepping closer. "It's Noah." Michael's chest tightened. "What happened? Is he sick?" She shook her head. "No, but he's been sleepwalking." Michael's eyebrows rose. "Sleepwalking? Every night since you left." He scoffed lightly. "That's not possible. He's never done that before." "I know," she said, her tone cutting through his dismissal. "It started 3 nights ago, around 1 in the morning. He walks the hallway upstairs, sometimes down the stairs. I've had to keep watch so he doesn't hurt himself." He stared at her, trying to register what she was saying. "Why didn't you tell me?" Olivia folded her arms. "Would you have answered?" That stung more than he expected. He looked away. She added softer, "I didn't want to worry you while you were gone. And Noah, he hasn't asked for anyone but you." Michael rubbed his temple. The jet lag was already clawing at him, and now this. "What do you mean he asked for me?" "While sleepwalking," she said, stepping back slightly. "He whispers your name. Not loudly, just like he's looking for you." Michael exhaled slowly, the guilt creeping in before he could shove it down. "I've been busy, Olivia. This merger in Tokyo—" "I'm not judging," she said quickly. "I just thought you should know." He nodded, unsure what else to say. The house felt different tonight. Too quiet. Too aware of his presence, like it was watching him just as much as he was watching it. "How is he during the day?" he asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Quiet," she replied. "Withdrawn. He barely eats, won't play with his toys. He just waits. And when he does speak, he asks when you're coming home." Michael winced. "You didn't tell me any of this." She tilted her head. Would it have changed anything? His mouth opened, but no words came out. Before he could formulate a response, a faint creak echoed from upstairs. Both of them froze. Another soft thud, a heel on hardwood. Slow, deliberate. Michael instinctively took a step forward, but Olivia gently grabbed his arm. "Wait, let me." He shook his head. "No, he's my son." She let go, expression unreadable, and nodded. Michael moved slowly up the staircase, the old wooden steps giving slightly under his weight. Halfway up, he paused, listening. Another creak. At the top of the stairs, in the dim hallway lit only by a nightlight plugged into the wall, a small figure stood near the open door of the guest bathroom. Noah. The boy's eyes were open, but unseeing. He stood barefoot in his pajamas, one arm half raised as if reaching for something that wasn't there. Michael's breath caught. "Noah," he whispered. No response. The child turned slightly, murmuring something under his breath. Michael took a slow step forward, careful not to startle him. "Noah, it's Daddy. Let's get you back to bed, okay?" Still nothing, just the slow shuffling of small feet against the hardwood floor. He reached out and gently touched his son's shoulder. Noah paused, then turned and began to walk back toward his bedroom. Michael followed, heart pounding. Once the boy was tucked in, Michael sat in the small desk chair by the window, watching him sleep. His face looked peaceful again, innocent. But Michael saw it differently now. Every missed bedtime, every broken promise, every trip where he thought buying something would cover for not being there. Downstairs, Olivia waited in silence. She didn't need to say, "I told you so." She already had. And Michael? For the first time in a long time, he wondered if he'd ever really come home at all. The coffee was bitter. Michael sat at the kitchen island, staring into the dark surface of the untouched drink in front of him. The morning sunlight hadn't yet spilled over the horizon, and the only illumination came from the dim light above the stove. Olivia stood across from him, arms crossed tightly, her posture less about defiance and more about holding herself together. Her voice was calm, but behind it lay exhaustion, layers of nights without sleep, days of managing a child not her own, and emotions she'd clearly bottled up for too long. "It started the night you left," she said. "At first I thought he was just going to the bathroom, but then I saw he didn't respond when I called his name, eyes open, expression blank." Michael ran a hand down his face. Jesus. The first time he walked into the hallway and just stood there, whispering your name. Olivia's voice faltered. "I thought maybe it was a one-time thing, but then it happened again the next night." "And you didn't call me?" "I almost did," she admitted. "I picked up the phone. Twice. But I figured, what would be the point? You were on the other side of the world, busy. I didn't want to interrupt." He met her eyes, searching for sarcasm, but found none, only fatigue. "I had meetings around the clock," he muttered. "I know," she said simply. There was no judgment in her tone, but the weight of her words hit him anyway. He glanced toward the stairs. "I didn't know it was this serious," he said. "I didn't know he—" "No," Olivia cut in softly. "You didn't." Silence filled the kitchen like a fog. "I've been staying up," she continued. "I set an alarm, 12:45 a.m. every night, because it usually happens around 1, the first time he almost reached the stairs. I thought maybe I was dreaming. But when I realized he was going down, I panicked." Michael's eyes widened. "He went down the stairs?" She nodded. Barely caught him. His foot slipped, and he started to fall forward. I grabbed him just in time. He looked horrified. "Jesus, Olivia, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to panic you from afar, but also—" She hesitated, then dropped the line like a knife. "I didn't know if you actually cared." The words hit like a slap. Michael froze, lips parted. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Her eyes were wet now, but her voice was steady. "He asks about you, every day. He tells me which toy he's going to show you when you come home. He draws you pictures, puts them on your desk. Half of them get buried under unopened mail and contracts, and every night when I tuck him in, he says the same thing." Michael said nothing. She continued. "He says, 'Tell Daddy I miss him.' Every night, whether you're gone for 2 days or 10. He looked away, swallowing hard. The cold grip of guilt was wrapping tighter around his throat. "I'm not his mother, Mr. Langford. I never pretended to be. But I'm here, and sometimes being here is all that matters." Michael stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "I didn't ask you to parent my son." "I know," Olivia said. "That's the problem." That shut him up. The ticking of the kitchen clock filled the space between them, louder than it had any right to be. Michael paced to the window, looking out at the backyard, empty, still. The swing set he'd paid for sat unused, the grass underneath worn but untouched this week. He hadn't even noticed. He turned back. "Why didn't he tell me he was upset?" "He's 6, Michael. He doesn't know how to say it. He shows it in the way he acts, the way he withdraws, the way he clings to routine. He shows it every time he sleepwalks and calls out for you in the dark." Michael gritted his teeth. "I'm trying," he said finally. "I really am." "I believe you," Olivia replied. "But Noah doesn't need you to try harder at work. He needs you to try harder here." That night, Michael stayed up. He sat on the hallway floor outside Noah's room, the same alarm Olivia had used now set on his phone. He didn't read emails, didn't scroll, didn't call anyone, just waited. At 1:02 a.m., the door creaked open. Michael's heart thudded. Noah emerged slowly, bare feet padding across the hallway. His eyes were open but distant, dreamlike. He murmured something, a whisper, almost inaudible. Michael held his breath. Noah shuffled toward the staircase. Michael moved quickly, quietly. He didn't grab him, didn't startle him, just stepped into the hallway's edge, watching. Noah paused. "Daddy," the boy whispered. Michael's throat tightened. His hand instinctively reached out, but he didn't speak. Noah turned slightly, head tilting as if listening for something. Then, as if redirected by an invisible hand, he turned and walked back to his room. Michael followed him, gently guiding him into bed. Noah lay down easily, unaware, his breathing softening into sleep. Michael stood over him for a long time. It wasn't just the sleepwalking that scared him. It was what it meant. Noah was reaching for something, someone he couldn't find in his waking hours. He was calling for his father in dreams because he wasn't present when it mattered most, and Michael finally saw it for what it was. Not a condition, not an accident. It was grief, silent, nightly, ongoing. As he stepped into the hallway, he passed Olivia, standing near the end, watching. Their eyes met. Michael didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Not tonight. The sun filtered weakly through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the living room floor. Michael sat on the edge of the sofa, elbows on his knees, watching the light shift slowly across the carpet, like time slipping through his fingers. In his hand, he held a drawing, crayon scribbles on construction paper. A rocket ship, stars, and a stick figure boy waving from inside the cockpit. On the bottom corner, written in clumsy block letters, was the word Dad. He found it that morning on his desk, buried beneath a stack of unopened folders and courier envelopes. The guilt hit differently in the daylight. Across the room, Noah sat on the floor, building a puzzle. He didn't look up when Michael entered, didn't greet him. He worked quietly, eyes focused, lips pressed into a thin line. Michael cleared his throat. "That's a cool puzzle." Noah didn't respond. Michael walked over, kneeling beside him. "Need help?" No answer. He reached for a piece, trying to find a corner to fit. "You know," he said gently, "when I was your age, I loved puzzles. I used to make them with... You weren't here on my birthday." The words were small, almost a whisper. Michael froze. Noah didn't look at him, just kept working the pieces. "I know," Michael said, his voice catching. "I'm so sorry, buddy." "You sent the drone," Noah said, "but it was already broken." Michael felt the air leave his lungs. "I didn't know that," he murmured. Noah stood up and walked out of the room without another word. Michael remained there, staring at the unfinished puzzle. In the silence that followed, his mind wandered, slipping back into the memory of that day. It was pouring in Shanghai. The rain drummed steadily against the hotel window, and Michael barely registered the time difference as he dialed home from his suite. No one answered. He left a voicemail, cheerful and rushed. Promised he'd be back soon, promised he'd make it up to Noah. Then he clicked send on the confirmation for the drone, latest model, shipped overnight. Wrapped, perfect. He'd smiled at the thought. He'll love it. Back then, he believed that love could be quantified, that the more expensive the gift, the more it meant. And maybe, just maybe, he believed it was easier to be forgiven by a child who could be distracted by something shiny. But now, looking at his son's face, he realized how wrong he had been. That evening, Olivia made dinner. Michael insisted on setting the table, lighting candles, even slicing the chicken himself, trying, in every quiet action, to reclaim something lost. Noah ate in silence, pushing peas around his plate. "How was school?" Michael asked. "Fine." Michael tried again. "Anything exciting happen?" No response. He gave Olivia a helpless glance. She stayed quiet, letting him learn the hard way. After dinner, Michael offered to help Noah with his bath and bedtime routine. The boy didn't protest, but didn't seem comforted either. He allowed it, mechanically. When Michael tucked him in, Noah rolled to face the wall. "Good night," Michael said softly, smoothing the blanket over him. "I love you." No reply. Michael left the door slightly open and sat outside the room again, just like the night before. By midnight, the house had settled into stillness again, except for Michael's restless thoughts. He paced the hallway, glancing at his phone, reading half a text from a business partner before turning the screen off entirely. No more distractions. Then, just past 1 in the morning, he heard the soft creak of a doorknob turning. Michael held his breath. Noah emerged, sleepwalking again. But this time, his movements were quicker, more purposeful. His little feet padded quietly down the hallway, past the staircase, toward the front of the house. Michael followed silently, his nerves on edge. He expected Noah to stop, to turn into the kitchen, or sit in the living room like before. But instead, the boy continued forward, straight to the front door. Michael's stomach dropped. Noah reached up with both hands, fingers fumbling at the deadbolt. Michael lunged just as Olivia came around the corner from the hallway, bathrobe pulled tight, face pale. "Michael!" He was already there, gently grabbing Noah's arms before the lock could turn. "It's okay," Michael whispered. "I've got him." Noah's body stiffened, but he didn't wake. He murmured something again. Michael couldn't understand it, but the word "daddy" was clear enough. "I'm here," Michael whispered. "I'm right here, buddy." Olivia stood nearby, visibly shaken. "This is the 3rd time he's tried to leave the house." Michael turned to her, stunned. "What?" "I installed a new lock last night. Higher up, just in case," she said quietly. "But I didn't think it would happen again this fast." Michael looked down at his son. His heart thudded in his chest. Noah had been trying to leave, not because he knew where he was going, but because he didn't feel safe, or grounded, or home. And Michael realized something bone deep in that moment. His son was haunted, not by ghosts, but by his absence. The hallway, the staircase, the front door. Noah wasn't walking in his sleep. He was searching for a father who was never there when he needed him. Michael carried Noah back to bed, holding him close. This time, he stayed in the room long after the boy lay down. He sat in the rocking chair near the window, not moving, not speaking, just watching the slow, steady rise and fall of his son's breath. He stayed there until morning. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made the whole house feel quieter than usual. Rain tapped gently against the windows as Michael stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, clumsily slicing strawberries for Noah's lunch. It was a small thing, insignificant maybe, but it mattered to him. He'd cancelled his morning meetings, told his assistant he wouldn't be in the office until the afternoon. The world, for once, could wait. Across the kitchen, Olivia poured coffee into 2 mugs. She handed one to Michael without a word. He accepted it with a quiet nod. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, sipping. The space between them wasn't tense, not anymore, but filled with something different now, something more human. After a long pause, Michael spoke. "I didn't grow up with much." Olivia glanced at him, surprised by the sudden openness. "My father worked 3 jobs. I saw him maybe once a week, on Sundays if I was lucky. When I finally made real money, I told myself I'd never let my son feel neglected like I did." He gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Turns out, I just found a more expensive way to do the same thing." Olivia leaned against the counter, holding her mug with both hands. "You're here now. That matters." Michael looked at her. "Does it?" "It's a start," she said simply. He nodded, absorbing that. "What about you?" he asked after a beat. "You've been holding everything together. How do you do it?" She hesitated. Then, slowly, "I'm a single mom, 2 kids. My daughter's 9. My son, he's 7, has asthma so bad I keep an emergency inhaler in my purse." Michael's brows lifted. "You've never mentioned them." "I don't usually talk about them here. This job pays more than anything else I've had. I keep my head down, do the work, go home." Michael's expression softened. "That must be hard." She shrugged. "You do what you have to do." He looked down at the strawberries, half sliced. "And with Noah, I never expected you to take on so much." "I didn't plan to," she said, "but he needed someone, and I was here." Her voice cracked just slightly on the last word. She looked away, pretending to refill her coffee. Michael felt the weight of it all settle in. The cost of his absence. The way Olivia had stepped in, not to replace him, but to protect what he'd left vulnerable. "I want to do better," he said quietly. Olivia turned to him. "Then do it, but don't do it for me. Do it for him." That afternoon, Michael picked Noah up from school for the first time in over a year. The boy was quiet in the back seat, clutching his backpack like it was a shield. "I thought it would be Olivia," Noah said without looking up. "She usually does," Michael replied gently. "But I wanted to come today." Noah didn't say anything. Back home, they played a board game together. Noah didn't smile much, but he didn't leave the room either. It was progress, however small. Michael made dinner again that night. Chicken fingers and mashed potatoes, comfort food. They ate at the table together, Michael, Noah, and Olivia. After dinner, Michael sat on the couch. Noah curled beside him under a blanket and read from a picture book about space. Noah didn't ask him to stop. He even leaned his head slightly on his father's arm. For the first time in days, something inside Michael loosened. This was what he had missed. Not the birthdays or the school recitals, but these small, in-between moments that made up a child's memory of home. Later that night, he stood by Noah's door, longer than usual, just listening to the boys' even breathing. Olivia stepped beside him in the hallway. "He didn't sleepwalk last night," she said softly. "Maybe it's working." "I hope so," Michael whispered. But hope, he would learn, doesn't work on a schedule. Just after 2 a.m., Michael woke with a start. No noise, no thud, just a sense that something was off. He got up and opened Noah's door. The bed was empty. Panic surged through him as he rushed into the hallway. Olivia appeared at the same moment, barefoot and alarmed. "He's not in his room." They heard it, the front door rattling. They ran. Noah was at the door again, both hands on the handle, tugging with a kind of frantic determination they hadn't seen before. His face was twisted with distress, his breath shallow and quick. Michael reached him first. "Noah, hey, buddy, I'm here." But Noah didn't respond. His eyes were wide, blank, but filled with something darker this time, fear, desperation. "Daddy," he whispered, but not to Michael, to the void, to wherever his dreams had taken him. "Daddy, where are you?" Michael knelt down and wrapped his arms around him. "I'm right here," he said, voice trembling. "I'm right here, son." Noah struggled briefly, then collapsed into his father's chest, still asleep, but calmer now. His hands clutched at Michael's shirt like lifelines. Michael held him for what felt like forever. Behind him, Olivia stood silently, watching with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Later, after Noah had been gently placed back in bed, Michael sat beside Olivia at the kitchen table again. Neither of them spoke at first. Then Michael said, "He was calling for me, but it was like I wasn't me to him. I was just a ghost, a voice in the distance." Olivia didn't correct him, didn't soften it. She simply said, "That's how it feels when someone you love keeps disappearing." Michael's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He glanced at it from across his office desk. Meeting moved up to 4 hours. Need your sign-off before then. Another vibration. Client from Singapore wants 15 minutes by Zoom. Urgent. He checked the time. 5:43 p.m. Dinner at home was supposed to be at 6. Noah had picked out the menu himself. Spaghetti with meatballs and garlic bread. They were supposed to watch a movie afterward, just the two of them. No calls, no laptops, just them. It was Noah's first real request since Michael had started staying home more. A sign that maybe, just maybe, the walls were coming down. Michael stared at the messages on his phone. His mouth tightened. Then, slowly, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out of his office. But by the time he made it to the parking garage, the assistant was calling. "Michael, I'm so sorry, they moved it again. It's happening in 15 minutes. You have to be on the call." He hesitated. Just 15 minutes. That was it. Back home, the kitchen smelled like warm bread and tomato sauce. Olivia stood at the stove, stirring gently. She glanced at the clock, then at Noah, who sat at the table with 2 place settings and a folded napkin on each plate. "He's probably just running late," she said softly. Noah didn't respond. He stared at the door for a long time, then, quietly, maybe he forgot. Olivia's heart sank. It was nearly 8:30 when the front door opened. Michael stepped inside, loosened tie, phone still in hand. "I'm home," he called out. No answer. The kitchen was empty, though the dishes were still on the table, untouched. Upstairs, he heard movement, a door closing, a quiet voice. "Olivia?" he called. He found her on the landing outside Noah's room, arms crossed, face unreadable. "I was stuck," he started. "They moved the meeting. I couldn't get out of it." She nodded once. He waited. 2 hours. Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know, I feel awful." "No," Olivia said, voice sharp. "You feel guilty. That's not the same." He blinked, caught off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means guilt is easy. You feel it, then you move on. You say you're changing, but tonight proved something." She stepped forward, voice low and cold. "You're still a visitor in your own son's life." The words hit harder than anything she'd said before. "I'm trying, Olivia," he snapped. "I've cancelled meetings, left work early, rearranged my whole life, but when it mattered, really mattered, you weren't here." Her voice was rising now. "You missed his night. You promised him something and you broke it. Again." Michael's jaw clenched. "It's not that simple." "No," she said, voice trembling. "It never is. Not when you're the one who gets to leave. I stay. I watch him wait by the window. I clean up the uneaten dinners and dry his tears when he says, 'Maybe Daddy's busy again.' Oh, good, I'm the one explaining your silence." They both fell quiet, breaths uneven. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke through the tension. A creak, then a thump. Michael's blood ran cold. Olivia turned first, sprinting toward the stairs. "Noah!" They reached the top just in time to see him, half asleep, mid-step, tilting forward at the edge of the landing. Time slowed. Michael shouted, but Olivia was already there, diving forward, arms outstretched. She caught Noah's waist just as his foot slipped off the step. Her back hit the wall hard, cushioning him. Noah whimpered, still asleep but safe. Michael rushed to them, helping steady Olivia and lifting Noah into his arms. The boys stirred, blinking, confused. "Daddy!" "I'm here," Michael whispered, voice shaking. "I've got you." He held Noah tightly, like the child might disappear if he let go. Olivia leaned against the wall, breathless. Her voice was hoarse. "He could have died." Michael nodded silently. The truth hit him with full force. This wasn't about missed dinners anymore. It was about trust, safety, presence, and he had failed. Noah opened his eyes more fully now, looking between the two of them. "Why are you fighting?" The question pierced the silence like glass breaking. Michael turned, still holding his son. "We're not fighting, buddy. We're just talking." Noah frowned. "You were yelling." "I'm sorry," Michael said, voice cracking. "You should never have to hear yelling." Noah reached up, touching his father's cheek. "I was scared." Michael shut his eyes, trying not to cry. "Me too." Later that night, after Noah was asleep and the house was still again, Michael sat alone in the hallway. He didn't check emails, didn't scroll his phone. He just sat, face buried in his hands. All the money in the world, all the connections, success, deals. None of it had saved his son from nearly tumbling down a staircase. None of it had earned his son's trust. None of it had stopped Olivia from being right. He had been a visitor, and visitors don't get to stay forever. But fathers do, if they choose to. The morning sun was already pouring through the windows when Michael cancelled everything, meetings, calls, a presentation he was scheduled to lead. "Postpone them," he told his assistant over the phone. "No, not reschedule. Postpone, indefinitely." There was a long pause on the other end. "Sir, is everything okay?" Michael looked out the window at the backyard, where Noah's tricycle sat untouched under the tree. The wind stirred the leaves gently, as if the world was exhaling without him. "No," he said quietly, "but I think it will be." He hung up. All day he stayed home. No distractions, no excuses. He made breakfast, burned the toast. Noah didn't laugh, but he didn't complain either. Michael helped him with a school project, listened when he talked about a book he liked, and sat beside him during his favorite cartoon. He didn't push, didn't pry. He just stayed, present. The boys' walls didn't come down all at once. There were still long silences, still a certain distance in Noah's eyes, like he was waiting for the illusion to fade, waiting for his father to disappear again. But Michael didn't. Even when Olivia offered to take over, "You should rest," she said. He shook his head. "I'm exactly where I need to be." That night, Michael sat in the hallway again. No laptop, no emails, just a mug of warm tea and the hum of the house around him. He checked on Noah every half hour. The boy had fallen asleep peacefully, arms spread wide across the mattress, covers tangled, a soft snore escaping his tiny frame. Michael smiled at the sight. He didn't know when his son had last looked so still, so safe, but deep down, he also knew it wasn't over. At 1:14 a.m., the door creaked open. Michael didn't move. He didn't panic. He just waited. Noah stepped out into the hallway, eyes open but vacant. His little hands hung at his sides, feet shuffling softly against the floorboards. Michael rose to his feet slowly, quietly. Noah walked a few steps forward, stopped and turned his head to the left, toward the staircase, the same one he'd nearly fallen from just 2 nights before. Michael's breath caught, but this time Noah didn't move toward it. Instead, he paused right in the middle of the hallway and whispered so softly it was barely a sound, "Dad." It wasn't a question for the room. It was a cry from somewhere deeper, a reaching, searching ache, and for once Michael was there to answer it. He moved gently toward his son, not rushing, not speaking, just present. When he reached him, he knelt down and opened his arms. "Noah," he said, his voice barely above a breath, "I'm here." Noah took a single step forward, then another, and then, without hesitation, walked into his father's arms. Michael wrapped him tightly in a hug, one hand cradling the back of his son's head, the other holding his small body close. He wasn't sure when the tears started, only that they didn't stop for a long time. Noah, still asleep, let out a soft sound and leaned deeper into the embrace, like his body finally recognized the safety it had long been denied. Michael pressed his forehead against his son's temple. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, "for not being here, for every night I missed, every moment I should have held you. I see it now. There were no grand revelations, no swelling music, just the quiet rhythm of breathing, the warmth of contact, the stillness of a heart finding what it had lost." In that moment, Michael didn't feel like a visitor anymore. He felt like a father. Eventually, Noah's body went slack again in full sleep. Michael gently lifted him and carried him back to bed. He tucked the covers around him, brushing the hair from his forehead. As he turned to leave, Noah murmured again, not fully awake, "Stay." Michael sat in the rocking chair without a second thought. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not tonight. Not again." It started subtly. A night without footsteps, then two, then a full week. The sleepwalking, once a nightly ritual of absence and longing, faded like a ghost finally at rest. And in its place, something else returned. Laughter. Not loud or dramatic, just the kind that spills out of small things. Spaghetti slurped too fast, a knock-knock joke with a terrible punchline, a father pretending to be a dinosaur because his son demanded it. Michael found himself rediscovering his own house, one school pickup, one bedtime story at a time. He started leaving his phone in another room during dinner. He learned the names of Noah's classmates. He volunteered to chaperone a school field trip. He got a paint stain on his shirt, making a solar system diorama, and he didn't care. Noah still had his quiet days. Healing wasn't instant, but when Michael entered the room now, Noah looked up. When Michael asked how his day was, he answered. And when he reached out for a hug, Noah didn't hesitate. One afternoon, Michael found Olivia in the laundry room folding towels. He lingered in the doorway until she noticed him. "You have a second?" he asked. "Of course," she said, setting the towel aside. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a new contract, an official promotion, a raise, full benefits, and more. She stared at the papers, speechless. "There's more," he added. "I set up a college fund for both your kids. Full tuition, whatever school they want." Her hand trembled slightly as she held the envelope. "Michael, I don't know what to say," he smiled. "You don't have to say anything. You saved my son, more than once, and you never asked for anything in return. I was just doing my job." "No," he said, shaking his head gently. "You were being family, and it's time I treated you like it." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. She nodded, swallowing the emotion. "Thank you." He stepped forward, hugged her briefly but sincerely, and then left her to take it in. The seasons began to shift. The air turned cooler, the trees dusted the lawn with orange and gold. Michael and Noah raked the leaves together on Saturdays, built blanket forts on rainy afternoons, and got into the routine of Saturday morning pancakes, burnt always but made with enthusiasm. Noah didn't sleepwalk anymore, but Michael still kept the hallway light on, just in case. One evening, just before bed, Noah sat on the edge of his mattress, holding a picture he had drawn. It was simple, crayon lines, bold colors, a stick-figure dad, a boy, and a woman with a ponytail standing between them, a house behind them, a big yellow sun. Michael knelt beside the bed. "Who's this?" he asked, pointing at the woman. "That's Olivia," Noah said matter-of-factly. "She's part of our team." Michael smiled. "She sure is." Noah held up the drawing. "You should put it on your desk, so you don't forget." Michael leaned in and kissed his forehead. "I won't forget, not ever." Noah lay back, pulling the covers up. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, buddy." Michael turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. He sat down in the chair outside Noah's room, the one he'd claimed weeks ago, not because he needed to anymore, not because he was afraid, but because he wanted to, because presence is a choice. And this time, he was choosing to stay. The hallway was quiet, peaceful. Michael leaned back, listening to the soft, steady rhythm of his son's breathing. He was home now, and he wasn't leaving again. Sometimes the smallest moments change the biggest lives. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe for more.